They say that Moscow's airport was closed at one point. They had to reschedule flights because of drones in the air. Now, in Ukraine, there are no longer any commercial flights due to the dangers of missiles and also drones. But in Russia, they've still been running commercial flights for passengers. And Moscow has been fairly cushioned, really, from a lot of the war. I mean, they have had drones certainly above the city before, but Moscow residents wouldn't have seen them that often. So probably for them, it's still quite shocking every time they hear that drones have been shot down over Moscow.
Ukrainian drones launched a significant overnight attack on Moscow in the early hours of Monday, October 27th, forcing Russia to temporarily close two of the city's four major airports. Moscow's mayor Sergei Sobyanin reported that Russian air defense systems intercepted 28 Ukrainian drones over a 5-hour period, beginning just before 10 p.m. Moscow time on Sunday. The Russian aviation watchdog Rosaviatsia announced that Domodedovo Airport, the largest commercial airport serving Moscow.
A Santa Claus van just turned Moscow's Christmas into the world's largest fireball, and the tactical genius behind this attack is absolutely insane. While thousands of Russians were boarding flights home for the holidays, Ukraine was about to execute one of the most audacious drone strikes in military history, right inside Moscow's most heavily defended airspace. We're talking about a $120 million aircraft packed with cruise missiles, destroyed by drones that cost maybe a few $1,000s each. And here's the wild part. The weapon was already inside the city, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the perfect moment. It's 7 p.m. local time at Moscow's Sheremetyevo Airport. The place is absolutely packed. Thousands of people heading home for Christmas, completely unaware of what's about to happen. 7 miles from the runway, in a snow-covered clearing, sits what looks like an ordinary delivery van with a cheerful Santa Claus painted on the side. But inside, 10 drones are spinning up, preparing to hunt a single target. Now, before we get into the attack itself, let's talk about what they're targeting. There's an Ilyushin Il-76 transport aircraft sitting on the tarmac, disguised as a civilian freighter. This thing is worth $120 million, and it's being loaded with Caliber cruise missiles, the same missiles Russia has been using to terrorize Ukrainian cities. But here's the problem. To reach this target, these drones have to fly through what is essentially a digital fortress. We're talking about 3 Pantsir air defense batteries, an S-400 system that can see everything within 55 miles, and electronic warfare systems specifically designed to jam drones. So the question is, how do you use a Santa Claus van to assassinate a target inside the most heavily defended airspace on the planet? Well, buckle up, because this gets wild. At 7 p.m., the roof of the Santa Claus van slides open with a low hum. 10 drones lift into the freezing evening air in a perfectly synchronized sequence. And immediately, they split into 2 groups with completely different missions. 4 larger Baba Yaga drones punch upward, climbing to exactly 150 feet. These aren't attack drones, they're command and control platforms, basically flying computer servers that will coordinate the entire operation. Below them, 6 smaller FPV attack drones do the exact opposite. They slam down to just 80 feet off the ground, accelerate to 90 miles per hour, and here's the brilliant part. They lock into the exact departure corridor of an Aeroflot passenger jet that just cleared the runway minutes earlier. Ukraine had hacked into Flight Radar 24 and scraped real-time flight data, turning a commercial flight path into a cloak of invisibility. It's like pulling out of an alley and merging perfectly into rush hour traffic. You just become part of the normal flow, and they're flying completely dark, broadcasting 0 GPS signals, giving Russia's electronic warfare systems nothing to jam or spoof. They're navigating purely on internal sensors and AI-powered visual recognition. But wait, how did this weaponized gift even get into position in the first place? This is where the plan gets absolutely genius. Ukraine exploited the single greatest vulnerability of any security state, the chaos of a national holiday. For 36 hours, as holiday traffic overwhelmed checkpoints across Moscow, the Santa Claus van just became noise. Overstretched FSB agents looking for large-scale threats saw a manifest for children's gifts and waved it through. They never checked the false bottom. Ukraine didn't just smuggle in a weapon, they weaponized the holiday itself. But even the most brilliant infiltration can't hide you from the laws of physics forever. At 7:04 p.m., a screen on a Pantsir air defense battery starts flashing. A 27-year-old lieutenant sees 6 strange echoes on his radar, small, slow-moving objects at low altitude. The profile screams, "Hobbyist drone." probably some civilian who strayed too close during the holiday chaos. Annoyed at the interruption, he decides to swat the fly. 1 second later, a missile erupts from its tube, accelerating to Mach 3. It takes exactly 4.1 seconds to cross the gap. The first FPV drone simply ceases to exist, vaporized inside a 60-foot ball of fire and shredded tungsten. The confirmation crackles over the radio. Confirmed hit, just a civilian quadcopter, comrades. They had no idea they just executed the cheapest, most expendable piece in the entire swarm. Because the destruction of that first drone wasn't a failure, it was the trigger. The microsecond the Pantsir registered the kill, the entire swarm executed what they called Ghost Protocol. All 5 remaining attack drones simultaneously severed their own digital connections to the command ships. No signals coming in, no telemetry going out. They were now flying on pure, pre-programmed instinct and AI navigation. To the Russian radar systems hunting for electronic whispers between drones and operators, the 5 targets had simply vanished from the radio frequency spectrum. But invisibility isn't enough. You also need to create a convincing illusion. As the real attack drones went dark, one of the Baba Yaga command ships unleashed its true weapon, a powerful spoofer that began broadcasting falsified signals, perfectly mimicking the radar signatures of all 5 missing drones, but projecting them on a trajectory that was slowly climbing and veering away from the airport. It's the ultimate magic trick. The Pantsir system did what it was programmed to do. It followed the lie. The operator watched as his system automatically dropped its lock on the empty space where the real threat used to be and began tracking phantom targets. Meanwhile, another Baba Yaga unleashed a focused beam of high-power noise aimed precisely at a second Pantsir battery on the west side of the airfield, completely blinding it. One enemy system was being actively misled. The second was being blinded. For a moment, the swarm was safe, but their own cleverness had just painted a giant glowing target on their backs for something far more dangerous than any Pantsir. 55 miles away in Dubna, an S-400 air defense system saw everything. And here's the crucial difference. A Pantsir is designed to scan the immediate area for small threats up close, but an S-400 is an apex predator, purpose-built to hunt the most valuable targets on the battlefield: command posts, AWACS planes, and high-power electronic jammers. The Baba Yagas, in their attempt to be clever, had just made themselves the perfect S-400 target. The system's computer instantly dismissed the phantom signals fooling the Pantsir as irrelevant noise. Instead, it locked onto 4 powerful, coherent signals hovering at 150 feet. It didn't see drones. It saw the enemy's nerve center. The S-400 prepared to launch its 40 N-6E missile, a 236-mile range weapon with a 400-pound warhead designed to obliterate strategic bombers. If those missiles launched, the 4 command ships would be instantly annihilated. The AI command link would be severed, and the attack drones would become tumbling bricks, crashing harmlessly into the forest. This was the ultimate checkmate moment, and the clock had just run out. But the Ukrainian strategy had one more trick. One of the Baba Yagas was never just a command ship. It was the designated ace in the hole. Plasma flare cartridges ignited with a blinding flash. Thermal decoys ejected, creating an incandescent trail. In less than a second, the drone's apparent surface temperature leaped to over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, creating a radar signature 10 times larger than the actual swarm. To the S-400's computer, it was like a shark spotting 4 small fish, suddenly being presented with a bleeding whale. The Gravestone radar's lock instantly shifted to the phantom target. 2 missiles worth $4 million roared from their launch tubes and detonated harmlessly in the Moscow sky, bright as premature Christmas fireworks. The Ukrainian agents had just bought their lives, but the price was anonymity, and the final window of opportunity was now open, just 18 seconds wide. At 7:06 p.m., the final attack drone peeled away from the exposed swarm, its motors screaming as it pitched into a steep, 65-degree terminal dive. The target, the left wing of the IL-76, precisely where the main fuel tank connects to the engine pylon, a spot no larger than a dinner plate. The drone struck. The 7-pound shaped charge didn't explode on contact. A half-second delay fuse allowed the warhead to punch through the aluminum skin and bury itself inside the wing's main fuel tank before detonating, focusing the entire explosive force into a single jet of molten copper, moving at nearly 25,000 feet per second. This jet instantly vaporized 400 gallons of jet fuel, creating an expanding fireball that reached 2,200 degrees. The fuel tank ruptured, turning the aircraft's frame into hypersonic shrapnel. But the real devastation had just begun. The blast waves slammed slammed into the cargo bay packed with oxygen canisters and 24 caliber cruise missile warheads. They detonated sympathetically, equivalent to 1.5 tons of TNT. A column of fire 220 feet high erupted from the heart of the airfield, so bright that passengers inside the terminal over a mile away could see it clearly. The $120 million IL-76 and its $24 million cargo ceased to exist. The violence was contagious. A fuel truck exploded, sending burning jet fuel across the tarmac toward an ammunition depot. Sheremetyevo Airport was paralyzed, all flights grounded. Within minutes, the airport shut down for 5 hours, canceling 300 flights and stranding over 42,000 passengers on Christmas night. But the agents on the ground? They were already gone. 21 minutes before the first drone ever struck, the Santa Claus van and a sedan had quietly pulled out, melting invisibly into holiday traffic, heading for the border. Here's what this attack really accomplished. Russia lost its primary air bridge for delivering cruise missiles for the entire holiday period. Putin was forced to pull an entire Pantsir battery from the front lines to protect Moscow, weakening air defenses for his troops in the Donbass. And in the 72 hours that followed, Ukraine launched 5 new offensives, punching into Russian lines that were suddenly receiving significantly less artillery support. Ukraine just proved you don't need an army to make Moscow tremble. You just need 10 drones, a van painted with Santa Claus, and the intelligence to turn your enemy's greatest celebration into their personal nightmare.